Atrocities across seas, even here at home. The whole world is a crime scene, let it be known. 84, crack cocaine, open up the door. Abandoned builders, crackheads sleeping on the floor. The Bronx used to look like a war zone. Where the hell is Mary Lindsay? Get that man on the phone. Everything that they taught us in school is a fable. The donkey and the elephant sit at the same table.
Thank you for watching the Free Thought channel. My name is Mike Scott. Today's date is February the 3rd, 2019. And this is episode 2 of the Scott Report. Today's topic is the FBI admits rigging elections in the United States. Before we get started in the video, I want to actually ask you to be sure to subscribe to this channel, the Free Thought channel. Make sure you also click the bell so that every time I drop a new video, you'll get an alert. So let's get right into the information. So a former director of the FBI, Mr. Terry Torchy, admits that counterintelligence is still going on in America, and that the purpose of the counterintelligence that he did when he was the deputy director of the FBI was to prevent progressive leaders from getting elected to public office. Now, he admitted this on Fox News publicly, and he really put his foot in his mouth, but at the same time he reminded all of us progressives and activists in the community that the FBI has not stopped its counterintelligence program. COINTELPRO is alive and well. Historically, it was supposedly ended in 1971 after a congressional investigation, but clearly, according to Mr. Terry Torchy here, this former deputy director of the FBI, it has not. Because when he became a member of the FBI in 1976, he admits in this interview that it was still going on.
And I think we can expect more of this because, quite honestly, the electorate in some places is putting more and more progressives and self-described socialists in positions. And ironically, years ago when I first got into the FBI, one of the missions of the FBI in its counterintelligence efforts was to try and keep these people out of government. Why? Because we would end up with massive dysfunction and massive disinformation and massive misinformation. And it seems to me that's where we're at today.
Furthermore, in this interview, one of the things that really stands out is the fact that this guy didn't even miss a beat when talking about preventing progressive leaders from being elected into public office. I mean, he clearly states in the video that he was part of the counterintelligence program that prevented socialists or anybody that had social leanings and progressives from getting elected to public office. And he did it in such a way as to say we should be doing it again. And oh, by the way, if I was still in the FBI, because that's what we did, we would be stopping people like Ocasio-Cortez, Ro Khanna, Tulsi Gabbard, and others from actually being elected and having power in D.C. And so it's sad, but it's also a sober reminder as to what we have to deal with as we continue to pursue justice across the board. Because electoral politics is this one aspect of political activity. I mean, this broadcast is political. It's informing you. So electoral politics is this one layer. It's crucial. It's important, but obviously it can be rigged and manipulated. And who's to say it's not? Because according to this former director of the FBI, that's what they did. And that's probably what they're doing even today. The sad part is that left, liberals and Democrats and Democratic Party leadership in particular, they have this love affair now with the intelligence community, as they call themselves. They have convinced everyone, and I guess they're convinced it themselves, that you can't dislike two evils. Right? Either you have to love Donald Trump, who I'm not a fan of, and probably most of the people watching this video is not a fan of, but you have to hate Donald Trump and love the intelligence community. You can't dislike them both. You can't be against both of them for policies, activities, or whatever. the mission, according to Terry Torchy, was to stop progressives. That's the same mission as Donald Trump and his administration. And for, groups, leaders in the Democratic Party to somehow not be able to walk and chew gum at the same time because they have forgotten the long and soiled history of the FBI and the CIA as it relates to progressive movements, it's shameful, because I'm sure they know the history. If somebody like me knows the history, and these people are far smarter than I am, right? They went to far better institutions of higher education than I did, but somehow they have forgotten that the FBI has gone after all of basically the major leaders in the 20th century. Dr. King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, the entire anti-war movement was attacked and infiltrated by the FBI. So I guess they forgot that history.
Ask you, I don't know if you have seen this. I don't want to blindside you with this. This is the latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying. The president-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I'm told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
In terms of, the deep state, remember, they're not elected. They are not accountable to anyone. It is a permanent deep state that exists in this country. And no matter who's the president, a Democrat or Republican, Obama or Trump, they remain in power. And that's a threat. That's a threat to democracy. That is a threat to security. That is a threat to peace, and they've shown that. These intelligence agencies are really, they're, in my opinion, the secret police of the ruling elite, because, established in 1946 with the National Security Act, 1947, groups like the CIA and others have, through covert means gone all around the world, and apparently right here in the United States, and they've stopped progressive movements. And they've, been involved in the assassination of progressive leaders. And that's something that we have to continue to fight against. And, this interview is really shocking because according to, history books, COINTELPRO ended in 1971 with a congressional investigation. This guy, Terry Torchy, entered the FBI, started his career with them in 1976. So what does that say? Obviously, counterintelligence didn't stop. And counterintelligence is totally different from intelligence gathering. Counterintelligence means that they go in and they create, incidents, agent provocateurs, if you will. And as a result of that, they're able to stop these movements, arrest their leaders, do whatever. There are tons of people who went to prison who were part of the Black Panthers or were assassinated. And the public was told that, it was good cause for this. It wasn't until later on in the 70s that it was proven that counterintelligence programs went in and basically defamed these organizations and manipulated them and set them up to either go to prison or to be assassinated without any public outcry.
There's breaking news tonight coming from the National Archives and another batch of JFK assassination files. They include, though, an explosive FBI dossier, not on JFK, but on Dr. Martin Luther King. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. reflects then Director J. Edgar Hoover's deep suspicion and obsession with Dr. King, which was certainly no secret at the time. And it speaks to just how far he and the FBI went to try and discredit Dr. King. The dossier released today contains items that are both, and I say explosive, but they are unsubstantiated. CNN's Gary Tuchman joins us now with more. So what are you learning? What's in this stuff?
Well, Anderson, among the more than 600 documents released late today by the National Archives is this one, a never-before-seen file titled Martin Luther King Jr., A Current Analysis. It's dated March 12, 1968, and includes a number of explosive allegations about the civil rights leader who was assassinated 23 days after this report was first compiled. Among the claims detailed, Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in extramarital affairs and other sexual activities that, if true and revealed publicly, would have been devastating to Dr. King and his movement. In addition, there are pages and pages detailing Martin Luther King and his organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with alleged ties to known communists. And finally, details about supposed financial improprieties by Dr. King and the SCLC. Now, I want to stress that the FBI, under Director J. Edgar Hoover at the time, had been investigating Martin Luther King Jr. for years at this point in the hopes of finding damaging information, and that we have no way of corroborating these allegations.
It's also important to point out that the counterintelligence program that existed, it not only targeted people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. and Fred Hampton, but it also targeted the general public. According to books written by like Johnny Cochran, His Journey to Justice, on page, 132, he talks about the counterintelligence program and the ghetto informant program. According to Johnny Cochran and others, the ghetto informant program involved the employment of like 4,000 regular people in the black community. And their purpose was to go out and listen to what was happening in the black community and report back to the FBI so that the FBI could then employ counterintelligence means to destroy organizations that were trying to get civil rights, that were trying to, make an effort so that black people can be treated like human beings in this country with the right to vote and, public accommodations and the right to live wherever you want to live and the right to be employed. The FBI saw it as a threat. That progressive movement was a threat. There's also another book, COINTELPRO Papers, written by Ward Churchill, another great read. And, again, he goes into great detail about the ghetto informant program on page 110. There is a lot of material out there that talks about COINTELPRO from a historical perspective. What this interview showed on Fox News is that it's probably not historical. It's very likely that it's still going on today. I want to show you a quick video of what happened to Fred Hampton. And, it's sad, but it's history.
Pig said he's good and dead now. The pigs running around laughing. They were really happy, talking about Chairman Fred is dead. I never saw Chairman Fred again.
The bullet, which was in fact recovered from Mr. Hampton's body, was a bullet fired out of a carbine by Officer Davis.
He's pumping his shotgun. I turned in his direction. I fired 2 shots at him.
The immediate, violent, criminal reaction of the occupants in shooting at announced police officers emphasizes the extreme viciousness of the Black Panther Party.
We are dedicated that his life wasn't given in vain. Then there won't be no more mornings tomorrow.
We all stay right here.
We all stay right here.
With the people.
With the people.
Because we love the people.
In addition to that, I'm sure most of you know that MLK was not a friend of the ruling elite in this country. Dr. King in his later years, regardless of what you think about his nonviolent movement, his nonviolent approach, as he got, towards the end of his life, his whole tactics and ideology changed from a civil rights perspective to an economic perspective. he is quoted as saying that, you know, the redistribution of wealth needs to happen. The ending of the Vietnam War needs to happen. And he was ready to boycott, you know, Coca-Cola in order to get it done. This was a threat to the ruling elite directly, you know, and with him planning the Poor People's March on Washington, which would have shut Washington, D.C. down, I believe that that's the reason why he was assassinated so quickly. And there's FBI documents that prove that leading up to April 4th, 1968, that the FBI was on high alert when it came to Dr. King, because they did not like the fact that he was threatening the status quo, the establishment. So, you know, back to the original point here of this video, the FBI being involved in rigging elections is something that a lot of us, you know, already suspected. And, you know, we can look at the 2000 election with George Bush and Al Gore. We can look at the 2004 election with George Bush and John Kerry. And you see all these irregularities. I mean, even the last election with Clinton and Trump. And, you know, I did not support Clinton in the beginning. I supported Bernie Sanders as a progressive. But I did end up supporting Hillary Clinton. But the sad fact is that we live in a country where we're supposed to have representative government, but we have an outdated electoral politic system, right? That says even if you get the majority of the votes, you can still lose an election. And that's happened twice. It happened with Trump in 2016 and happened with Bush in 2000. Not to digress too much, but here's the point. What if we don't really have a system of government that is truly honest, transparent, and legitimate, you know, with the current system we have now? Because according to this guy and his omission, that's clearly what's going on. You know, the FBI in its counterintelligence, clearly in this interview is you know, has a mission to stop progressives and socially minded people from getting elected to public office. That's terrible. In addition to all of that, there's omissions by members or former members of the CIA that all of our phone conversations, all of our activity on the internet, it's being recorded and documented, and it can be retrieved at any point.
Tim, is there any way, now obviously it was a voicemail, they could try to get the phone companies to give that up at this point, but if it's not a voicemail, it's just a conversation. There's no way they actually can find out what happened, right? Unless she tells them.
No, there is a way. We certainly have ways in national security investigations to find out exactly what was said in that conversation. It's not necessarily something that the FBI is going to want to present in court, but it may help lead the investigation and or lead the questioning of her.
So somewhere
we can certainly
it's being
find that out.
digitized, or they can actually get that. Because people were saying, look, that wouldn't be possible. It's pretty incredible what you're saying.
No, welcome to America. All of that stuff is being captured as we speak, whether we know it or like it or not.
Note to self, as Deb Farrick just said here, yeah. All right.
The fact that they can go back and get information about you in a phone conversation should really scare you. Publicly admitting this on news shows and every now and again, someone comes in and blurts out some truth with all the smoke going on with, you know, Russiagate and the investigation. Every now and then someone mistakenly tells you what's really going on. And in this case, you had a former FBI or CIA agent, whatever, just blurt out the truth. They're watching and recording every single thing we say and do. That's a police state. That's not a democracy. And it's wrong. And until we stand up and speak out against it, it will continue to happen. So be sure to click the subscribe button, click the bell so that you'll get an alert every time I drop a video. And thank you. Thank you for watching another episode of The Scott Report.